year's theme is United in Action to Rescue and Achieve the Sustainable Development Goals for, with, and by persons with disabilities. This annual observance aims to increase awareness and promote understanding of both the challenges and rights of those living with disabilities. Our city has become the strong, vibrant place it is today thanks to the many contributions of Edmontonians of all ages and abilities. A healthy and thriving community is one that is diverse, inclusive, and has opportunities for everyone. And how we support the people who live in these communities provides the foundation for a safe and resilient city. The City of Edmonton is taking a more deliberate approach to planning by creating accessible and barrier-free buildings, parks, and open spaces. We're also building more supportive housing that tailors to the unique needs of its residents. And City Council is always relying on the vast knowledge and expertise of our Accessibility Advisory Committee. Their recommendations improve not only infrastructure, but also programs, services, activities, and policies that greatly enhance quality of life. When all of us work together, we can continue to strengthen Edmonton's overall livability. Because our city is enriched by the many contributions of persons with disabilities, and our community is strengthened when everyone is included. I encourage each of you to take time on Sunday, December 3rd, to consider how you can do your part to support a more inclusive Edmonton. Thank you. Are there any other protocol items? No? Select items for debate. Councillor Knack.
Thank you, Mayor Sohi. I'll select items that would be 7.7 and 7.8.
7.7, 7.8.
As well as 9.1.
Okay.
That's it for me for now.
Okay, Councillor Wright.
If I could select 7.5 and 7.6, please.
7.5, 7.6. Okay, any other? Seeing, oh sorry, public member Madamombe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Items 7.1,
7.1.
7.3,
Okay.
and 7.4.
7.4.
Mr. Chair, if I may as well, I think 7.2.
7.2, okay.
Yeah.
So 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.5, 7.6, 7.7, 7.8. Okay. Okay, right on. Can someone move the balance, please? Councillor Wright?
So moved.
Okay. Please vote.
Thank you, Councillor Principe. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. Thank you. So, Clerk Solars, can you please let us know what we have already approved?
Thank you, Mayor. So the November 30th, 2023 Audit Committee has approved item 7.8, administration, sorry, my apologies, 7.9, Enterprise Risk Management, Policy C587, update the recommendation that is going to council because council approval is required, and 7.10, Annual Corporate Strategic Risk Profile.
Okay. Thank you. Request to speak. There are few, and I'll move that audit committee hear from the following speakers in panels when appropriate. 7.5 and 7.6. We hear from Sherry Heschuk joining remotely. On 7.8 and 7.7, we hear from Sherry Heschuk joining us remotely. Okay. Please vote.
Thank you, Councillor Principe. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Request for specific time on the agenda, none. Councillor inquiries? None. Report to be dealt with at a different meeting? None. Request to reschedule the reports? None. Unfinished business? None. Now we are going into our public reports. So we will start with the 7.1 KPMG Audit Planning Report. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having us here today.
Yeah. Nice to see you all. Please make the introduction of your delegation.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Natalie Kendall. I'm a partner here in Edmonton, at KPMG's Edmonton Audit Practice. I'm joined here with Robert Brelli, our office managing partner for Edmonton, and Gordon Rudelich, a manager in our audit practice as well. And we are here to present our 2023 audit plan for the audit of the consolidated financial statements of the City of Edmonton. I want to start by highlighting in our plan that there has been a transition of the lead partner role from Robert to myself this year, so I will be serving as your lead audit engagement partner. This is in accordance with the rotation requirements of this committee, and Robert will continue to support in a role that will make sure that we bring the right resources to the table and maintain a good client relationship here. I have been a part of the audit in the past years, and so I look forward to serving in this role. I also have an involvement in a number of other public sector clients in the Edmonton area and the province. So again, really look forward to taking on this role and serving this council and this committee this current year end and on a go-forward basis. We have provided our audit plan in advance, so I defer to the committee whether you would like us to walk through the plan or whether you would just like us to entertain any questions you may have.
I think let walk us through the plan,
Perfect.
please. Yeah.
So our audit plan is for the consolidated financial statements, as we mentioned, for the year ended December 31st, 2023. The purpose of our audit is to provide an opinion on whether the financial statements are free of any material errors. We are engaged to provide other audit opinions as well over a number of other portions of the city and other entities within the city, and those are outlined on page 4 of our report. I'll start the main discussion of our report on page 7, and that's the discussion of materiality. As a reminder, materiality is the number we use to help scope our audit. If errors were noted in excess of this amount individually or in aggregate, it would be thought to bear on your decision-making process of this committee and of others, users of the financial statements. So we've set materiality at $98 million, and that is consistent with the materiality set last year. We benchmark that materiality against total budgeted expenses, and it is presented as 2.9% of those budgeted expenses based on the summer update to the budget. We do audit to a lower level of precision, however, so any errors or differences noted in excess of $4.9 million would be brought to your attention, and we would evaluate those for their impact on the financial statements individually and in aggregate to determine whether they approach that materiality threshold. Our audit plan is largely unchanged from the prior year, with the exception of the items noted on page 8 of our report. This year, the city is required to adopt a number of new accounting standards, most notably the Asset Retirement Obligation Standard and the Financial Instrument Standard, and our approach has been adjusted to audit those. For the Asset Retirement Obligation Standard, this is one which we have discussed with this committee in the past, and as a refresher, It requires the city to recognize a liability for the estimated future cost to decommission or remediate an asset. The best example here would be for a building with asbestos. There is a legal obligation to remediate or abate that asbestos at the end of a building's life, so the cost to do that would be estimated and recorded today on the balance sheet. Our audit approach will start by looking at management scoping exercise and appreciating and evaluating whether all assets that fall within the scope of the standard have been appropriately identified and then included within that estimate of the liability. We'll also evaluate key methods, assumptions, and data in that estimate to ensure that they are appropriate. With respect to the financial instrument standard, this one will have a few different impacts on the financial statements. First, it can change the measurement basis of certain assets and liabilities. Most notably, investments can be recorded at fair value or an amortized cost, where now they would be recorded at, where previously they were recorded at cost in the financial statements. It'll also introduce a new statement, so the statement of remeasurement gains and losses, and this will help represent those changes in the fair value that have not been realized yet. There are other additional disclosures that will come just to add additional information regarding the valuation and measurement of those financial instruments. Similar to asset retirement obligations, our approach will start with looking at management scoping and administration scoping exercise, ensure that all the appropriate assets and liabilities have been identified and included in their analysis, and then we'll perform targeted procedures to evaluate the appropriateness of any adjustments recorded. Continuing on to page 9, we do have some information on group audit scoping, and what this is we appreciate that the municipality is broken out into a number of different business units or components. So we've identified some that where the majority of operations are centralized in a few key components. We highlight those in the top right-hand portion of page 9. Those would have additional focus for our audit. However, we do look horizontally across all business units on a financial statement line basis and do identify additional procedures that need to be performed outside of those business areas in order to appropriately discharge our audit responsibility. Page 10 talks through a significant risk that we've identified in your audit, and this is not unique to the city. It is present in every single audit and is a presumed risk of management override of control. There are a system of control in place to prevent and detect fraud in the financial reporting, and we do gain an understanding of those. In addition, our primary response is looking for journal entries that represent higher risk or unusual entries, and we use data and analytics to support this. Page 11 outlines some other areas of focus for our audit, and these should be largely consistent with what you've seen in the prior year plans. So it would be the recognition of revenue amounts subject to external restrictions, the valuation of the investments, which we highlighted earlier as well, will be impacted by the implementation of the new standards, and the completeness of the transfer of tangible capital assets under construction to those available for use. The remainder of our report walks through our timeline for the execution of our audit. This has been agreed upon with the administration and culminates with us coming back in the spring to present our audit findings report. There are also some inquiries and other required communications in the appendices. The final item I'll draw your attention to is with respect to page 14. So on the bottom half of that page, there are some inquiries we are required to ask of this committee, and they're with respect to fraud or non-compliance. Want to highlight that we have asked similar questions of administration and of the city auditor, and no material items have come to our attention. If there is something that you feel that we need to be made aware of that has not been appropriately or sufficiently addressed in our audit plan, I would encourage you to communicate to us either via the city auditor, or my contact information is included in this package and you can reach out to me as a committee. That is the report as it is presented, and we would open it now for any questions you may have.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. Now we'll go to questions from committee members. This was exempted by public member Maramombe, so I'll start with him. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to KPMG for the presentation. 3 questions I have, and I'll start off with the first one, which addresses the change in leadership on the KPMG side. It appears there's been a transition plan that's been ongoing. I just wanted to confirm if you are foreseeing any major changes or any major issues arising from the experience that Mr. Burley brings to the table.
Do you want to answer that? Yeah. I would say that, as I mentioned, Robert will continue to be involved in engagement as needed. Being involved in your audit in the past has allowed us to have that succession plan in place, and so I'm fully up to speed on the matters of the city and being involved in that. But as you mentioned, where there are matters that the knowledge that Robert has amassed from the prior years, he will be involved to support in that way.
Thank you for that confirmation. And the second one is a technical one on the ARO side. Understanding that the matter has been brought forward before the committee before. Yeah. I wanted to understand, if from your initial assessments you are seeing any challenges, or whether there has been a constant flow of information to the extent that, there shouldn't be any surprises anticipated at the end of the year.
No, great question. As you are aware, it's been a multi-year project, and management has been very proactive and forthcoming with the information as they've continued through their analysis. We continue to work with them, and so I don't foresee any hesitation or resistance with that cooperation with management. We continue to work with them on what those adjustments are and to perform our audit procedures, and we'll provide any findings in our audit findings report. But it's been very collaborative and a very positive working relationship through the adoption of this standard.
And thank you for that. Just as a follow-up, do you have any preliminary indications of, what adjustments potentially we could be looking at or will be considered?
I would defer to management on that. They're in a better position to present what the quantitative and qualitative impacts to your statements could be.
Okay. Thank you for that, and hopefully we'll have an opportunity to hear from management.
Harm, I don't know that either of those mics were working. We tested them earlier. Apologies to me. I think it's fine if you step over the end or that. Yes.
Yes, thank you for the question. So we still are working through the adjustment and the assumption and estimate. So we haven't finalized a figure yet. But when we present our financial results in April, that's probably the first indication we'll get of what that number would look like.
Thank you very much for the response. Yeah, we look forward to receiving the information. Okay. The last question I have, Mr. Mayor, is for the auditors, and it's pertaining to any issues that they might have come to light at this point, given the stage you are at, with your audit work.
For sure. We have been performing risk assessment and preliminary audit procedures throughout the year, and any items that we would have noted are represented in this plan, so there's nothing additional that we would want to communicate at this time outside of what's in our audit plan.
Okay. Thank you for that.
For sure.
Thank you so much. Councillor Wright, next, please.
Thank you. So you referenced the multiple sort of lines of business that we have. When you're looking at that threshold, that 98 million materiality, what, I guess, how deep do you go down in each of those lines of business?
Yeah, no, very valid question. When we do disaggregate the business into those different business units, we do a similar exercise with our materiality. So we lower that threshold to the component level to get more precise. So, we talked about for materiality, there's the concept of $98 million is at the consolidated level. That's our threshold, and we have a posting threshold that is below that. We would disaggregate and allocate that $98 million essentially to the various business units within scope to ensure that we're auditing to a lower level precision that's commensurate with the size, the proportionate size of that business unit to the total city.
Okay, thank you. And then one other question, going back to page 9. You've got indicated the business units that are subject to a full scope audit. And that includes police services and EPCOR utilities. How much can you get into those?
So we can get into them. The records are readily available from a financial statement perspective, and from an EPCOR perspective, we do rely on component auditors. So we are separately engaged to audit the records of EPCOR utilities, as mentioned in this report. And so there is some formal communications as required by our auditing standards, where we do communicate with that separate audit team to understand if there are any matters that would impact our current audit of the city and their inclusion of those results.
And same then for police services?
So that would be within the scope of our main core engagement team.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I have.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much, Councillor Wright. Can you walk me through some of the areas that you're planning
The areas of focus?
Yeah, for audit?
For sure.
Yeah.
So if we turn to page 11 of our audit plan, these are areas of focus. So they're not the only areas that we look at in the financial statement I will highlight. These are just the areas where there is additional focus above and beyond, a base level of risk. The first one is the recognition of revenue amounts subject to external restrictions. So when this municipality gets funding from other sources that come with stipulations, there is accounting rules about how and when that revenue can be recognized. So what we do is we look at specific amounts that are received in the year and then used in the year to make sure that they are used in accordance with the funding agreement and therefore can be recognized as revenue. However, if they have not been used in accordance with that funding agreement, they would be presented as a deferred revenue on the balance sheet.
So
of the
these are
city.
kind of grant funding,
Exactly.
infrastructure funding that
Yes.
might be backloaded, but you're paying earlier on for some of that cost. Like it's that kind of aligns with when the when the money flows to the municipality?
Exactly, yes. So it would be ones where you receive the funds in advance of the actual expenditure incurring.
Okay. And on the valuation of investments, that's the next one, right?
Yes, yeah. So with the valuation of investments, as we highlighted, there will be some changes in the valuation methodology of your investment portfolio, with some potentially going to a fair value measure or an amortized cost, where currently they're at a cost measure. So our procedures will focus on that transitional adjustment. In addition, we'll confirm the existence and accuracy of the investment portfolio with your third-party custodians. We also want to look at the valuation of the investment in portfolio to understand whether there are any impairments, so amounts that are recorded in excess of their recoverable amount if they're not recorded at fair value already. And so we will do some targeted procedures to understand and appreciate that, how management has come to the conclusion of the valuation and to evaluate the appropriateness of their conclusion.
There were also reference to Valley Line Southeast in that, right, under the completeness of transfer. So that's more of a, like, can you walk me a little bit on that? Like, what are you looking at? Are you just looking more about the overall contract was fixed, right, but it's more of a transfer of dollars when that happens?
Correct. Yes, thanks for the question, Mr. Mayor. So when the Valley Line was being built, it was recorded, the cost has been being built up within your tangible capital assets. Where our audit will focus is the transfer of those amounts into an inactive account to an active asset account. And what that triggers is then depreciation needs to be recorded on that asset, and a disclosure would be slightly different with respect to the use of the asset. So we would look to make sure that the total cost of those that has been put into, of the assets that have been put into service have been appropriately transferred and disclosed as in service, and that from that in service date they are being depreciated, which is an expense to show the usage over time.
Okay. And on the some of the agencies or some of the external, so for example, what is that grant funding that we get from the province? The Family and Community Services, Family and Community Support Services grant funding, right? So that is part of the scope of work.
So as it pertains to the consolidated financial statements, yes, it would be in scope of our audit. We do also issue a separate audit opinion on that program and the reporting that is required for the use of those funds. So that is a separate, it's involved in two separate scopes, I would say. So there's a separate report over the grant funding and the grant reporting that is attached to those funds received.
So what is it? What would be included in that? Can you give me a couple of examples? What would that the audit look like?
At the, sorry.
The scope of the Family and Community Support Services.
So those are primarily grants that are provided to other funds as well. I guess I would defer to management to talk through the actual logistics of what is within and outside of the scope of those programs.
Okay. Harm? Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of like Natalie had explained, it's that audit is specifically to that grant program. And it's a required audit, so it's just the revenues that come in and the grants that we distribute out to organizations. So just making sure they're eligible with the grant program and all the eligibility requirements. So yeah, so that's what that audit is.
And the similar type of work with the Explore Edmonton, Edmonton Unlimited, or that's more broader?
So the FCSS grant audit is specific to that grant program.
Yeah.
The audits for Explore Edmonton and Edmonton Unlimited are specific audits to their entities.
Oh, I see, okay. Can you talk a bit more about that? I'm running out of time, maybe
Yeah.
I'll come back
For sure.
for a second round. If I know other council members have some question, I'll come back to that if you could park that question in your mind there.
Sure.
So okay. I'll go to Councillor Wright. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm just going to follow up on the FCSS funding. Does that audit also include then the outcomes being met, or is it just the eligibility that funds being released?
Our audit would cover whether the funds were distributed in accordance with the program and with the intention of it. The outcome would be outside of the scope of our audit opinion.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, well, on the scope of the Edmonton Unlimited and Explore.
For sure. So there are a number of entities within the municipality that are required to provide standalone financial statements. So where we issue an audit, where this is the audit of the consolidated financial statements, includes, balance sheet, income statement, and all the note disclosures. These entities would be required to present a similar set of financial statements that present the discrete operations of those entities only. So we are separately engaged outside of this audit to provide that separate audit opinion on Explore Edmonton, Edmonton Unlimited. The State of Edmonton Nonprofit Housing Corporation would also be included that, and the Edmonton Public Library Board. As we mentioned earlier, we are also separately engaged as the auditor of EPCOR Utilities.
Does that work come back to this committee?
Yeah, to this committee? Not to this committee. Those would go to the management and the
So it
charge of
directly
governance of
goes to those, oh, I
Yes.
see, okay.
Yeah.
So even though we are approving that work, right, are you seeking, like, part of this, like, we need to approve that work for you to conduct that work?
The inclusion of that information in our report is for information
Oh, I
purposes,
see,
to
okay.
advise that we are also separately engaged to perform
Oh, I
those
see, okay,
engagements.
got it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
This report is strictly for the audit of the consolidated financial
Okay.
statement.
Does those agencies engage with you on kind of defining the scope of the work?
So we are engaged to perform the audit, and then it is our responsibility to, similar to this, we would present an audit plan for those individual entities. And our scope would be limited to an opinion on the financial statements and whether they are free of material misstatement or error.
Not on the effectiveness, as you said, with FCSS. That's a different conversation.
Yeah, that would be, I would say, more in alignment with something that the city auditor would be within their scope and operational in nature.
Got it, okay. Well, thank you.
Well,
Thank you so
for
much.
the questions.
Go ahead, Councillor Wright, go ahead.
I'm sorry, and who pays for that audit, those audits to be performed? Like those, because we don't get the information back.
The cost is borne by each individual entity.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Well, thank you so much for the
Thank you,
presentation,
everyone.
and thank you so much for coming to make the presentation, and wish you all the best, and congratulations on taking on a bigger role on this, right? So appreciate, looking forward to working with you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, so we have a recommendation. Can someone move the recommendation, which is, here you go. I think, public members can move recommendations, yeah, right?
Yeah, I do so move.
Sorry, what's the question?
Question is that public members of the committee.
Yes, that's
can
correct.
move. Yeah, please, Maramambe, want to move the recommendation?
Yes, I do so move, Mr. Chair, that item 7.1, the KPMG audit planning report, be received by this committee for information.
Okay, as set out in the attachment 30th, will be approved, okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Anyone to speak?
Sorry, just one moment. I just need to check that we have the right recommendation up. One moment. I
It's
think
right
it's
up
just received for, I think it's received for information, though, not an approval. One moment.
The recommendation is that the KPMG audit planning report for the year ending December 31st, 2023, as set out, attachment 1, be approved.
That's right.
Okay, so that is the
Sorry,
motion.
excuse my interruption.
Yeah, got it. Okay. All right, anyone to speak? Seeing none, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay. Next, we have 7.2, Fraud and Misconduct Hotline Program Activity Report. 7.2, is there a presentation on this?
Just a very short,
Please, go ahead.
one here. So thank you very much. So the Office of the City Auditor manages the city's fraud and misconduct hotline. The people who do this include myself, our Deputy City Auditors, Jason Solowan and Sharon Han, our Strategic Coordinator, Chrissy Burton, our Audit Manager and Senior Fraud Investigator, Leslie Glasbeek, and our Data Scientist, Alfred Apea. So this report was to give you a preview of our Fraud and Misconduct Hotline Program Activity Dashboard. We will be making this dashboard public in the new year. So this gives an indication of the amount of tips we've received, how many are being investigated, who's doing those investigations, and what are the outcomes of those investigations. So we will still be providing you the details of the substantiated investigations in our annual report, so they will not be included as part of this dashboard. And that's it. So any questions on the dashboard? I'm happy to take those now.
Okay. Thank you so much. We'll go to public member Maramombe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for the presentation to the City Auditor. Looking at the dashboard itself, I do see that 7.2 highlights that 71% of the reports have been investigated or are being investigated. So my question to the City Auditor is why 71%?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. So actually, some of the tips that we receive through the hotline, they're not to do with fraud or misconduct, or there's not enough information provided in the tips, so that there isn't anything that's to be investigated, not enough information to do an investigation, or it isn't linked to a fraud or a misconduct.
Okay, thank you for that comment. So basically, from the City Auditor Office standpoint, you make the assessment, that there isn't enough information, and you communicate directly with the administration on this?
Depending on what it is that comes in, we do actually have a way we can communicate back through the Clearview system. It's anonymous, though, how the tips come in, but we can ask questions back, or we can ask for additional information to try to figure out if there is something there that can be audited. And in some cases, like depending on what it is, we would just put in a notice that we've closed that tip, if in case the reporter decides to go back into the system. So we don't have a way of contacting them. We just hope that they go and check, and then they can give us that additional information, which could then, help us make a decision on whether or not it's something we can investigate or something that administration can investigate.
Okay. And then just a follow-up question to that, from a common theme standpoint, do you end up, doing some internal audit projects based on this? Or is this just purely issue resolution and you leave it at that?
No, actually, yeah, we do review all of the hotline tips as part of our sort of risk assessment when we're putting together our annual work plan. So, in this year, there were a number of tips that came in one particular area. And so there were things that could be investigated, but other things that were sort of just information, and that sort of has led to us deciding to do an audit in that area. So yeah, definitely that information, it can either be an investigation or it can be used to sort of give us information for a potential audit in the future.
Thank you for that.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Councillor Wright?
Okay, thank you.
Or Councillor Principe was next. No?
She wants to wait.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Wright, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry, but it's not an actual phone hotline. It's an application that employees access?
There's a phone number, or they can use an online tool, or some of these tips come to us through management, through administration, directly to us. We have a city auditor email. They might contact one of our staff or myself, and we would then put that as a tip, just as a method of tracking them. But the hotline itself is anonymous and calling or online.
Okay. And then I'm just noticing a sort of an uptick in the numbers between the first half of the year and second half of the year to date. Is there any reason for that? Is there some commonalities in that?
Like I said, there was one type of tip that we did receive a number of tips around the same activity, so that potentially could be it. It's quite random on how they come in. It's not something that we can kind of predict either. So it just, it depends on what people are noticing. We do every once in a while try to sort of advertise, for lack of a better word, out to the employees that we have this hotline. So potentially it could be as a result of that they've, oh yeah, right, and then they recognize that there's a way for them to communicate with us anonymously.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, is that like if it was something sort of common, is that identifying a risk that we should be?
Potentially, yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Okay, and we'll get further information on this. Yeah, okay. And so when you talk about the distribution of investigations, so most of them are go to administration or city auditor, but the three others, those are the ones that you're investigating, or is it the two that are substantiated?
No, so the others actually are, so sometimes we might get a tip that comes in and it's around something that should be looked at through the City Safe Disclosure Office or the Office of the Integrity Commissioner.
Okay, I see down there.
Yeah,
okay.
so we don't hear back from those.
Okay.
We send them off and that's the last we hear of them.
Okay, thanks for that clarity.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Some of my questions were answered already, but if an allegation is substantiated, what happens? What's the action? What are the disciplinary actions? Who's responsible for that?
So that is not the responsibility of the City Auditor's Office. So I'd have administration answer that, or it really depends on what was substantiated. It would be a very generic answer. Additional information will also be provided in our annual report, which should get around April of next year on those ones. And we can't talk a lot about it because it's personal information.
Right. So does that go to administration?
Administration is the ones who decide on the actions that are taken.
It's administration that decides. Okay, yeah, because I'm not aware of it coming to council, has no...
no, I
gives no
believe
direction
not.
in
No.
that. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, great. Yeah, thank you. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Principe. Public Member Bros.
Just to follow up to Mr. Metamombe's question and the response around 71%, 39 of 55 being investigated, I think I heard you say that there's a number that are not related to fraud or misconduct, and those, obviously can't, aren't investigated as part of this. There's some that don't have enough information that, are dismissed and pending further information if possible. The ones that do come through, or I guess this is the question, are there some that come through that are not fraud or misconduct, but do have sufficient information for follow-up, and are those sent from your office to management, to administration, to actually do something with, even if they're not fraud or misconduct related?
Yeah, I think, a short answer to that. Yeah, I think I understand what you're saying. So it would be rare, I think, that we would get something like that. But like I said, it would either help to inform us of a potential audit, or, for example, it was something to do with safety, or, so it's not a misconduct, it's not a fraud, but we think this is important, maybe it's a safety related thing, then definitely we would pass that along.
Perfect. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you. So any more questions? Seeing none, Councillor, who wants to move it?
I did so move, Mr. Chair.
Please, for information, thank you.
Yes.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Anyone to speak? Seeing none, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Next is the Office of City Auditor Recommendation Follow-Up Dashboard Report as of November 10th, 2023. Item 7.3 and 7.4 will be dealt together. Okay. So if administration could come up as well, just in case there are questions to administration. I'll go to City Auditor for comments. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so our recommendation follow-up is usually performed by our lead auditors from the original audit. The monthly reporting that we do to administration and the preparation of the reports that we are provided to you are done by our audit manager and senior fraud investigator, Leslie Glasbeek. And the dashboard, that's also managed by Alfred Apea, our data scientist. And I'd like to also add that this is another dashboard that we will be putting on our public website in the new year as well. So the report that we presented here, whoops, I just lost, sorry. This is showing, the report presents the current status of our recommendations. So right now we have 39 recommendations that are outstanding. Of those, there are 4 that are overdue, so they've gone beyond their initial implementation date. And we have received revised due dates for each of those. And as well, since our last audit committee meeting, we have closed 5 recommendations. So any questions? Happy to take those now.
We want to ask administration if they have any comments before we go to questions from committee members.
No comments.
Good. Okay. We'll go to public member Manamambe first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'll open up with the general question to the city auditor in terms of trying to understand whether there is a level of comfort from your end about the progress that's being made.
On a particular recommendation or all of them? Sorry.
The overall scope, your completion levels, given that, we do have an overdue section that you deal with as well, and what is being done about that.
So we definitely have a level of comfort that these recommendations, that work's being done towards implementation of them. At those dates that we receive are at a point in time, generally 6 months to a year in advance, and we recognize that things change and things happen, and that there are reasons for why recommendations may become overdue. And we are in constant sort of communication with those areas to get those updates so that we can understand and, where needed as well, if we need to clarify, if there's new people involved, something like that, then we can kind of clarify why we made the recommendation, what the real intent of that recommendation was. So yeah, I'm comfortable that they are working towards implementation, and sometimes they can meet those dates and sometimes they need more time for various and valid reasons, and I'm comfortable with that.
And from a common theme standpoint, what usually is the cause for overdue implementation?
It varies. We haven't done any formal analysis of that. Like I said, I think if I think about it, it would be potentially there's change in staff or resource requirements that are needed that can impact that. Some of them, as is the case with a couple of the newer ones we have now, there's an external party that's needed in order they need to kind of sign off on that quality management plan. So that's hard to predict what's going to happen with that. And then other things there's just lots of different reasons for that. So.
Okay, thank you for that response. The last question I have through you, Mr. Chair, is pertaining to those recommendations with long implementation timelines that are not yet due. What comfort level are you at to ensure that the implementation will be executed in accordance with the timelines noted?
So we do sort of, when we get those timelines at the start, when we're presenting the audit, we look at those, and we talk to administration so that we can have a comfort level on what their plans are and why it's going to take that long. And as they're doing the implementation, we have regular meetings between our lead auditors and the teams that are doing the implementation to ensure they're on track. One of the things we like to avoid is being told, oh, we've implemented this, and us coming in and saying, actually, this doesn't meet what we wanted, and so we want to have that communication early on so that is happening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. So there's a number that are coming due in December and without revised due dates. Do we feel that we're going to meet that due date of December?
Those ones that don't have a revised due date, yes, we have not been told that we won't be meeting those yet. So.
Okay. And then I'm just looking at the ones on the homelessness plan, city's response to homelessness. When was that audit first done?
2022, I believe.
And what, I thought it was 2022 as well, but I'm just wondering what month.
Oh, geez.
But because I'm just asking, so that due date that's showing there as December 31st, 2023, was that the original due date in the report?
Yes.
It was?
Yeah, and the revised due date's the December 31st, 2024.
Okay.
June 2022 was when it was done.
Okay. And I'm guessing, Ms. Flaman, it's a resource concern that's bumping it, or?
And it's because we were relying on our external partners. So the community-based organization is Homeward Trust. And so it's a capacity issue across the ecosystem for social serving agencies. So it's how do we work collaboratively with them?
Okay. But we are working to respond to homelessness, right? Yeah.
Yeah, an audit does not preclude a lot of activity to support this work.
Okay, awesome. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Absolutely. On the, just have a question on FEMCO, the due date for December 2024, recognizing that there are significant challenges. This is to administration, right? There are significant challenges related to that, and how the city, what is our approach is to city funding, recognizing those. I just want to get a sense the timing. Can it not be done prior to the supplemental budget not adjustment when we set the mill rate in April?
I think part of the challenges that we're facing is around the common employer application. And so that does bear out what we do in terms of roles and responsibilities and some of the models. That is not precluding, again, the work that we're doing. We are building out scenarios and we are building out different approaches, but that really, that is an external factor that we can't influence in terms of timing.
Right, so this is for lack of clarity, who works for the city and who work for FEMCO? Is that what that's what you're talking about?
Yeah, so there was an application put in regarding what is the status of City of Edmonton employees and FEMCO employees.
Right.
And there's been an application regarding who is the common employer. And so that work needs to be concluded. They are, and that's a timeline that I have no influence over.
Right. So some of the challenge that we are facing with FEMCO on funding and some of the funding shortfalls, so that are separate from this conversation then?
It is separate but connected, because when that is determined, that will then inform what kind of model we have, how we fund it, what that looks like. The funding shortfall conversations that have come in through budget, that's, I think, more a reflection of still trying to recover from the pandemic, and I think that would be a separate issue.
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. Okay. Okay, that's fine. Okay, good. All right. That's it. Okay. Thanks. Any other questions, colleagues? Okay. All right. So we have concluded the questions. I'll go to public member Meramombe to move the receive. This is the receiving for information, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
I do. Yeah, move forward the motion that the November 30, 2023 Office of the City Auditor Report, or CA 02193, be received for information.
Okay, got it. We have a motion on the floor. Anyone to speak? Seeing none, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay, so that concludes the.
Mayor, sorry to interrupt. We just also need to deal with item 7.4.
Oh yeah, can you, Mr. Meramombe, can you move that as well? 7.4.
I do so move item 7.4 as well, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Yes.
Please vote.
Councillor Rutherford, has the vote come up on your end? Mayor, could we just check that Councillor Rutherford, oh, there we go, never mind, we have all the votes.
Okay, display the votes, please. That is carried. Now we move on to Civic Agencies Governance Audit. We'll get a presentation from City Auditor and also Administration response to Civic Agencies Governance Audit. 7.576 cross-referenced. Okay, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, so the audit team for the Civic Agencies Governance Audit included Jason Solowan, our Deputy City Auditor, as well as auditors Lance Cooper and Alan Manuel. So civic agencies is a collective term for agencies, boards, committees, commissions, and task forces to which City Council appoints citizens, council members, or representatives of external organizations. Civic agencies governance is the combination of processes and structures that the city uses to inform, direct, manage, and monitor the activities of the agencies towards achieving their objectives. So the objective of this audit was to determine if the city's governance supports civic agencies to fulfill their mandates and help the city to achieve its strategic goals. We found that the city has policies and bylaws in place which outline some of the expectations related to civic agencies. There is also an expectation for some classifications of civic agencies to report to City Council, whether directly or through council committees, on a regular basis. The city also has processes in place to regularly review appointments to civic agencies. However, we did find areas where the city can improve the civic agency's governance environment and made the 4 recommendations that you see on the screen. So we found that roles and responsibilities for all city staff involved with city agencies are not well documented. We found some city agencies were created with overly broad mandates, and council has not regularly reviewed the agency mandate for current relevance. As well, we found that city agencies with annual reporting requirements were meeting those requirements. However, the reports submitted by city agencies contained inconsistent sections and did not include sufficient information for council to assess the agency's progress against its mandate. And lastly, city agency member training topics are documented in the city agencies, boards, committees, and commissions procedure. However, agency members are not receiving consistent training that covers those topics. So strong governance of civic agencies will help the city obtain consistent and relevant perspective and information to guide decision making. And that's our presentation.
Thank you. Any comments from our administration?
No, we're just happy to always have the opportunity to discuss with council its governance model, and we're really looking forward to any questions that you might have.
Okay. Thank you so much. Okay, Councillor Wright. Good. Oh, so we have a speaker. Sorry, we have a speaker. They're joining virtually, so you don't have to move. So I'm going to go to Sherry Heschuk. Please, are you there, Sherry?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
All right, thank you so much, Mayor Sohi. I just wanted to thank the City Council as well as those in attendance today on the International Day of Disability. And thank you again for the update to the report. My question is whether or not the city departments have access to equitable, inclusive, and accessible information, and whether or not the city has what it will need to be the safest city as its mandate claims by 2030. I believe that we have an issue with the social development branch, which is a part of the Citizen Services Department in the City of Edmonton, which provides services and resources for those people who are experiencing social and economic barriers. As a civic agency, we put together a nonprofit vote to implore the city to reinvest the Community Investment Operating Grant Program in full, which continues to provide over 300 nonprofits and charities with crucial funding, and these benefit all Edmontonians. Whether or not the council can commit to indexing all granting programs to inflation. So the audit is not inclusive of that. the city administration, if they can, continue to work with nonprofits and in the charitable sector to ensure a shared income outcome reporting framework. This includes the community investment operating grant funds, and they align with the outcomes that we have heard so far, as well as how we accurately report this to the City Council. Regarding the audit for social development branch from the Officer of the City Auditor, 57 million of the branch's financial contributions from 2017 to 2019 were made from the tax levy to the social development branch. Unfortunately, the City of Edmonton operational grant for small, medium organizations only actually cleared a maximum of 16,500. And in 2021, 2022, the grants were funded solely through the Community Safety and Wellbeing Strategy grant. Prior to that, again, I had said there was a tax levy money. So in 2022, the council budget decisions led to the grant program being cut to 25% of the previous levels. Therefore, the Edmonton Chamber of Voluntary Organizations, which represent a number of the Edmonton programs and services, did their own audit and collected 78 responses from 76 organizations. The CIOG has historically been for social services and other sports work organizations. A similar grant program is offered by a variety of grant programs through arts, culture, and heritage with the city. The findings from the audit was that there has been a low impact towards social development branch outcomes. And it's important to note that the city was not asking organizations to report on these outcomes. So the audit report is flawed and has a lack of data. I guess we're calling on the city department that they appreciate the learning so far about the current state of the CIOG, which the city did not reinvest in this fall in their new budget adjustments. And 323 letters were sent through that platform to councillors, and ECVO spoke to several city councillors, but in the end, you were not able to reinvest in the CIOG, unfortunately. And lastly, I hope that the city will develop a strategy to build a diverse partnership team of collaborators and partner organizations committed to learning more about structural barriers and gender and diversity bias. When composing the partnership team, consider the topic and people potentially most impacted by the research and proactively seek to include individuals and partner organizations from such groups or communities in the co-development of the research, which can include the community and the environment, as well as how they have been impacted by these cuts in their own communities. And that I'm hopeful will be addressed in this audit. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. Just want to get a clarification, Sherry. Are you here on behalf of any civic agencies or in your individual capacity? Just because it wasn't identified in the
I'm a member of a sport organization, and the cuts actually were quite severe for our program for newcomers, and we weren't able to provide a bus transportation to our event at Rundle Park Paddling Center this year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay, got it. But you're here on, are you speaking on behalf of, I just for the record, I just want to know if you're speaking on behalf of an organization or as an individual?
As an individual.
Oh, got it. Okay, good. So can you talk more about you said some of the funding was shifted to community safety and well-being funding out of some of the sports organizations that were getting the funding? Can you talk more about that?
Are you speaking to me?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, yes.
Well, all the funding we asked to have reinvested in the community investment operating grant was divested entirely through the community safety and well-being grant. So there's a dashboard, and I believe that there is a convenience of that program that the city has provided now for any new granting opportunities.
Okay. So the CIOG grants that were funded through tax levy now partly, because they're not 100% restored, but some money was added in the last budget. I think that's 50% of what the ask was coming out of the community safety wellbeing funding. But community safety wellbeing funding is also a tax levy supported grant.
Correct. And also the collaboration grant program that enhances new partnerships. So that's part of the city strategy and the community safety and wellbeing dashboard. So that is not through the tax levy, but it is through the community safety and wellbeing dashboard. So more than 1.34 million is available, and 350,000 will go to ethnocultural organizations or anti-racism efforts.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Wright, go ahead, please.
Thank you. Sherry, yeah, so I know that CIOG is administered or is, I guess administered through the Community Safety Community Services Advisory Board, in which I'm a council advisor. But so I'm just wondering how your comments here today relate to this report that we're on about the city agency governance. Is there more governance required on that, on CSAB, or?
As far as CSAB is concerned, I think you have to develop a good understanding of the microaggressions and how this can lead to individuals feeling excluded. So insofar as my personal experience, I've had a positive sense of community and developing safe spaces, concerned around, how we actually work with underrepresented or disadvantaged groups. I just think that we need to participate in and organize a number of ways that we can include or a plan for some of these audits to inform the organizations, and essentially if we can have appropriate resources for the audit officials, because I do believe that is one area that we're lacking. And in other words, how do we celebrate some of these events in a ways that will be inclusive? I think that's my biggest concern.
So our governance then should also include a section or consideration of underrepresented groups. Is that what you're?
Yeah, I think there's a supportive work environment through the language that they're using and the actions that they're using on being, their mandate to have a safe city by 2030. I think that's I think it's a sensitive matter. And I think that with the explanation of how we respect these individuals and these organizations that have lost funding, that we understand, where to go from here, because we have a lot of obligations to these members who receive our funds, and through the funding, the audit itself needs to be performed, I guess, in a way that's supportive and that's respectful. I think we need just to understand that if we're not actually showing that we can see a regular review, and we can see and assess a program based on regular review, I think that's something that's very important. I think it's important for everyone.
Okay, thank you. And my understanding with that CIOG funding, that was just a multi-year sort of funding, and it ran out in 2022, 23. And then we sort of were able to revive some of it with our last budget cycle, the 25%. So I know it's been missed by nonprofit organizations across Edmonton. But I will ask the auditor administration if any of that is taken into account when this review was completed. So, but thank you for coming today, and we'll look forward to your next presentation in the next item. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. So that concludes the question to you, Sherry. We'll go to administration now and to city auditor. Okay. All right, Councillor Wright, go ahead, please.
Okay, so was there anything taken into account on the review in regards to underrepresented groups on committees?
I would say that this audit looked at the governance of all of the committees and the work that the city does. So I believe that would be part of sort of the appointment process, which we didn't find any issues with. So there were no recommendations towards that.
Okay.
To speak to more to that, is that what's taken into account during that appointment process? I think I'll let the administration handle that.
Sure, maybe I'll go to the clerk then. Is that part of the governance review, looking into sort of the underrepresented groups? And
So just for clarity, love to talk about the governance, but I didn't do the audit, so any questions about how the audit was conducted or its scope, I think should be directed to the auditor.
Okay.
I can speak to what we're going to do as a result of the recommendations, but just, we didn't design the audit or set the audit scope. That obviously are done by the professionals in the city auditor's office.
so back to the city auditor then, since that wasn't done as part of the audit, then administration doesn't need to respond to that area, is that correct?
Yeah, that was not a finding of this audit that was lacking.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so just a friendly reminder, the appointments are done by council.
Yep.
Based on council's policy on what administration and how administration should be conducting our recruitment. So always we can do better and be more inclusive and more accessible. And we took feedback back in 2021 and we did make significant improvements in 2022, which saw the largest number of applications from the most diverse group that we've ever seen. But again, as the recruitment campaign kicks off in December for the civic agencies, we always have those conversations about how best to support you in your decision making.
Okay, but there's nothing in writing for the committees to actually consider that because they're going through and shortlisting and making recommendations to council for us to interview.
No, so it depends, but the majority of the decisions, including shortlisting from the long list, the short list, the interviews are actually done by city council. There's only a few advisory committees that actually bring forward recommendations which council then can ratify, but the majority of the work is done by yourselves through committees and council as a whole.
But do we need to have that put into the policy for us to consider, or we just need to
It is included in the policy.
Is it? Okay,
already.
okay, I didn't look that closely, I'm sorry. Okay. Okay, so then I had some other questions myself. I just need to find them now. Maybe here we go. I'm just in the listing on Appendix 1 of all the different agency boards and committees. Some of them I think are now sort of defunct, or like the Anti-Racism Advisory Committee, that's now replaced by the task force, is it not?
Nope. The Anti-Racism Advisory Committee is still a committee of council, and his work is paused.
Okay, that's what it was.
So it still
paused.
does exist.
Okay, awesome. And the Office of the Councillor's Budget Review Task Force, I think?
Yes, so the work of this, not to speak for my audit colleagues here, but this work started much earlier, but yeah, they're an ad hoc committee, and so that's why they're on the list from a time period, but yeah, they no longer exist.
Okay, and then Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Services Commission, that's now defunct, isn't it?
That's essentially the same response at the time. There was still ongoing decision-making. I believe that was a May 31 date. I would have to look back at the specifics of when the actual effective date was.
Okay, and then the Edmonton 2001 Legacy Foundation. I'm sorry, I haven't heard about this.
It is still a thing. It still does exist.
Okay, and do they, so it's a foundation, they provide funding?
No, but they still exist.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, I think.
Thank you, Councillor. Public Comment Bureaus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a number of questions. In terms of recommendation number 1, it looks like your work, question to City Auditor, was focused primarily on city agencies. And perhaps my own lack of understanding, I would have assumed that there are city staff involved in external agencies as well. Are there not?
I believe that's mostly councillors that that get appointed to those, but any, the recommendation is relating to city agencies, and that's city staff that are supporting those agencies. The external one, they're not controlled by the city, so there wasn't the risk there, I guess. If there is a city staff put onto one of those boards, it would be clear what their role would be there. So we didn't see the need to make that recommendation.
Understood. Do we ever, as a matter of practice, bifurcate the recommendations in terms of their timing to resolve, or is the report kind of taken in its entirety that all 4 of the recommendations get completed? You know, in this case, I think it was next December, I think.
Yeah, so we do leave the implementation date up to administration to decide, and so it would depend on many things, but like their workloads. Some things are already in progress when we are sort of going through the audit, so potentially those get done sooner. But in the end, that's administration that makes that decision.
Understood, and I guess the question to administration, it looks from a layperson's view, i.e. me, that recommendations 1 and 2.
Sorry, point of order. I think I lost the sound from Mr. Burrows.
Can you hear me?
So I'm talking and I couldn't hear the last question.
You can't hear?
Oh. How's this one?
I can hear you. It's just he cut out on his most recent question. So
Really, maybe, Burrows, can you move? Okay, use that one?
I stole Mr. Matamambe's.
Okay.
Sorry, Councillor. So my question was really around whether or not we had the ability or administration ever considered, you know, looking at the individualized recommendations. And it's a bit of a segue from Councillor Wright's question around, you know, what's this committee, what's that committee, what's this agency? Because it would seem from a layperson perspective that recommendations 1 and 2 shouldn't, correct me if I'm wrong, take a tremendous amount of work, effort, or time to address, whereas I could understand where recommendation 3 and 4 might actually take some degree of work to, you know, to get to the proverbial finish line. Am I wrong in that kind of understanding?
No, I think the complication with this audit, from our perspective in the city clerk's office, is we had also just completed a really thorough governance review of just the advisory committees. And so I also have 3 pages of direction from council on what council would like me to prioritize. And so trying to align that with this, our order of precedence on how we want to prioritize the work, and we've already had some changes approved by council in October. There's more changes coming to council on December 12th. It does include particularly a recommendation 2, which is to review the mandates. We're starting with the advisory committee. So how many advisory committees, what's their mandate, what's their purpose, does council still want them? And so we're doing that work, but we're focusing on some of the priority work that we're doing within our own governance review, because we have some cleanup and policy work that needs to be done. So there's a bit of a blending. If we can do it sooner, the better, we will. As we communicated to the auditor, we're in a unique position where our client is city council, and so I can make all the recommendations in the world, but the decision makers are actually the 13 people that we provide them to, and that's not actually ourselves.
Understood. And I guess one final point of follow-up, I guess, on that explanation, very helpful. Are we comfortable that any civic agency that is receiving funding is actually doing something in achievement of their mandate? Does that make sense?
It does, and I might have to, that wasn't within the scope that I participated in the audit, and that might be a question for the CFO, because I know that that has been a question that has come up through different conversations in both audits. But the city clerk's office isn't the one that goes in and looks at the organizations, but total fair question.
I don't think that mic works, Stacey. If you just, apologies, yes. No, that one as well.
So it does depend somewhat on the organization. So there was a grants and subsidies audit that we brought you. So to the extent that that some of these organizations are funded through either a grant or a subsidy, we capture that in the process. But in terms of, and we're working to make sure that we have agreements in place for I would say more of the agencies that we fund directly to ensure that they report back so that we can check the mandate against what the funding that we've provided. I think it's probably fair to say that for certain of the civic agencies, we don't have a process as administration to make a recommendation on whether the mandate's being met or not.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Thank you, Member Bros. Councillor Rutherford.
Yeah, thank you for this audit. I just wanted to follow up on, and I'm gonna direct this first to the city auditor and then to, hello?
Yeah, keep on, go ahead. Keep on going. We can
Okay,
hear
so
you.
I didn't know if I accidentally hung up. I'm switching between tabs. So around the city administration and their roles and responsibilities, one of the things that I've noted as I've been working, especially with advisory committees, is that, it says that there's administrative liaisons or subject matter experts, and then there's financial staff support. But I'm seeing an inequity in support levels because, for example, somebody might be a subject matter expert in transit, but they're not a subject matter expert in volunteer coordination and engagement, which is so. Does the city auditor have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Rutherford. I think our first recommendation actually will support clarifying that and, potentially clarifying the needs as well so that the people who work for the city know what their role is and the support that they're providing, and then that's also then clear to those agencies that they're supporting. So if there are gaps, potentially that's something that could be brought forward.
And then how come there was no recommendations then also for further training for staff? Because I don't know or I guess what training does happen for those administrative staff that are appointed to support.
We made a recommendation around training, I guess maybe as a whole for the agencies. There's nothing to prevent city staff from taking that training, but they would need to know what their role is. And so that's recommendation 1. And so I think in doing that, if there is any, like I said, gaps in what they should be providing and they're not doing it, then there would be an opportunity there for additional training or information gathering for that individual who's responsible for that. I don't know that there's any sort of specific training that the city has for city staff that honestly wasn't part of this audit. We looked at more around the governance piece and the training that was for the agency members.
Did you look at funding? I'm going to specifically go to advisory committees right now. Are all advisory committees given equal funding? Did you look at that?
So no, the funding aspect was not part of this audit. We did look at funding in the grants and subsidies audit. I can say though that there is funding that's provided, but there's also funding that we couldn't quantify. So through the support of city staff, that type of thing, that wasn't quantifiable. So we wouldn't have been able to get a full picture of the funding that came through that way.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, for example, and I'm going to have to give some explicit examples for 2 committees that I'm very different that I'm advisor appointed member to. I've got ETS advisory board that is basically saying they're told that there's no communication support for them whatsoever. And then I have WAVE that just launched a new website and has contractors that work on their social media and their webpage. So was that kind of stuff identified? Because it seems like a pretty big disparity between 2 advisory groups that should have equal access to resources. Is that addressed in recommendation 1?
The funding levels that they receive was not part of this audit or addressed through recommendation 1. Do you want, yes,
Aileen?
Aileen's going to go
Yeah,
ahead.
so Councillor Rutherford, great question. So this was actually something that we looked at as part of our governance review for the advisory committees, and I can't remember which attachment it is, but we did work with our colleagues in finance to pull together, not that the advisory committees ever have their own budget. Their budget is part of their branch budget where the admin liaisons are, but we did provide that information. And I would say part of our conversations, while it wasn't explicit with the auditors, is we do recognize from discussions with councillors, discussions with chairs, and through our audit, we did notice that they're all not equal. And so recommendation one is going to require some conversations. The city manager has already been part of some initial conversations, and there'll be more conversations with ELT. And we do have some data to back up our observations as part of our governance review.
Okay, perfect. That helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Wright?
Okay, my curiosity is piqued. How much is in that 2001 legacy fund? A 2016 journal article says about 10 million.
I'm going to need legal help on this one because it's about 22 years old.
Yeah, I'm going to say if you want the details on that one because it's incredibly unique, can we get back to you with some more information?
We can give you a memo on that one. It is a legacy, and I say that not ironically.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and from the article that I was reading, it seems to be interwoven with other funding and other...
Just for clarity, it is nothing that the City of Edmonton controls.
Okay.
So the list, and this is, if I can just say this point again, this list that you're looking at in attachment one is a list that the clerk's office prepare, and I do recognize there is confusion because we own it. It looks like council controls all of these organizations, and they do not. Council, however, may or may not make appointments to these organizations, and so therefore they think council has control over all of them, and they do not. That is why
something to do with the U of A and everything else, right? Okay. I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. And that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Knack?
I'm excited about that memo too. Real quick, there's I think a few remaining questions. I might have missed it. I know it was referenced right at the beginning of the audit that you didn't do Edmonton Police Commission and Public Library Board, and sorry if I missed. Why weren't they included? Because they have different governing legislation, provincial elements to it, or?
Yeah, Councillor Knack, that's correct.
Okay. I know the police commission is a little different because even that one, anything the auditor does has to be essentially approved by them. But that same requirement isn't included on the library, right? Like we don't need their permission per se the same way we would need the commission.
Councillor Knack, you would. They are a separate corporation, so
Oh,
they
even
can
that
be
one.
invited in, but the auditor has no jurisdiction to walk in without permission.
Okay, that's helpful. I wasn't 100% sure on that, so that's good. And I think the other question, there are other groups like End Poverty that have funding by council, but the appointments are done differently, and so they're not here. And just curious if there was any thought to organizations like that. I think End Poverty is not the only one like that. There's a couple that come to mind.
Yeah, Councillor Knack, that is a good question as well. So this audit did focus on those agencies where council is making appointments to. There are other, of course, nonprofit agencies where council gives money to, or the city provides money to, either as a subsidy or a grant or their funding. And so that would have been actually part of the grants and subsidies audit that we presented in May.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that one I remember well. So, okay. I think that's probably it. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Any more questions on this? Seeing none, Councillor Wright? Yeah, recommendations, please.
Okay, I would like to move that the November 30th, 2023 Office of the Auditor Report OCA 02191 be received for information and the corresponding administrative response.
Okay. Please vote. We can vote together on both, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay. Next, we are on to 7.7 and 8, city's response to 311 requests and administration response to city's response to 311 request audit. And I'll go to city auditor and administration for presentation if there's any.
Yeah, just another short presentation here. Just want to introduce our audit team, which included Sharon Han, Deputy City Auditor, as well as Senior Auditors Thomas Wong and Tracy Lee, and Auditor Alan Manuel, and our Data Scientist Alfred Apia. So 311 is the city's non-emergency contact center for city information and services. It provides residents, businesses, and visitors with a central point of contact for their city needs. The Service Innovation and Performance Branch is responsible for the 311 call center, but service delivery is a joint responsibility between them and other city business areas who also respond to 311 requests. From 2018 to 2022, 311 agents created 6.5 million tickets. The 311 call center completed 73% of these tickets, and business areas completed the remaining 27%. So the objective of our audit was to determine whether administration effectively responds to and closes 311 tickets. Overall, we found that 311 and business areas effectively respond to and close the majority of calls within the service standard. 311 provides and reviews statistical reports with the business areas on a periodic basis, and additionally, roles and responsibilities related to the handling of 311 calls are defined. However, we are making 5 recommendations that you see on the screen to improve the process for handling calls that require the business area to close the ticket. So we found that there are multiple definitions of what it means to close a ticket, and we found that business areas are closing tickets before actually completing or resolving them. Business areas have not documented the key performance indicators or targets to assess their closure of 311 tickets. The business areas we spoke to believed that this was the percentage of service requests closed on time. However, they did not have a clear method to calculate that number. We also found 311 has not maintained a current listing of individuals in their assigned 311 role, and business areas are not consistently providing a status detail of open and closed tickets on the city's 311 public website. The closure of 311 tickets based on completion of service requests will provide Edmontonians with a more accurate understanding of the level of service they can expect. Identifying key performance indicators and targets will help business areas know whether they are achieving their goals, and assigning individuals to their 311 role helps to ensure accountability and consistency in addressing tickets across all business areas, as well as a similar customer experience, regardless of which business area is closing that ticket. I believe administration also does have a presentation.
Go ahead, please.
Good morning. We're pleased to present administration's formal response and additional context for the city's response to 311 requests audit. Serving Edmontonians through service requests received through 311 is a shared responsibility between 311 and city departments. This service model is an example of how we work in an integrated manner to successfully deliver services to Edmontonians in the most effective and efficient manner. This audit touched on 4 different departments and many members of our team. We're thankful to the Auditor's Office for working closely with our teams and for sharing recommendations that will help support and advance our efforts in driving and implementing continuous improvements. We appreciate the Auditor's conclusion, and we accept all 5 recommendations in the report. I'm now going to turn it to Catherine Sparks, our Branch Manager of Talent Management, who was the acting Branch Manager for Service Innovation and Performance during the period of this audit, to provide a little bit more context about 311 and our response to the audit.
Thank you, Stacey. Every day, city teams are working together to enable a better life for Edmontonians. We know that 311 is an important mechanism for those we serve to connect with questions, requests for service, or support in general about the services that deliver on this promise. What we heard through the 311 audit is that the integrated service delivery model is effectively serving Edmontonians that connect through 311 with most of the inquiries received. We also heard that the opportunities to improve are about creating a consistent service experience through better referral processes and communication that will help improve satisfaction, trust, and ultimately deliver excellent services. To contextualize what we heard, each department owns and operates a number of services. When Edmontonians need to contact the city about these services, 311 is their simple and easy point of entry. With skilled agents now expertly navigating 70 services and over 1,100 types of service requests, the last 311 satisfaction survey conducted in 2022 showed that 91% of respondents agreed that 311 is a convenient way to access and seek services from the city. This ease of access has resulted in over 6.5 million inquiries, as the auditor mentioned, logged from 311 in 5 years between 2018 and 2022. From these inquiries, 311 agents are able to respond or address and fully close 73% of calls. These full-service inquiries, indicated in dark blue, are where we help Edmontonians register in recreation programs, or where we answer questions about transit schedules, infrastructure projects, or special events. These 1 million inquiries per year were not the focus of this audit. Instead, the focus of the audit was appropriately where there's more improvement to be made. It's in the 27% of the inquiries that are referred to the responsible business areas. This happens when a service request needs to be initiated, such as a request to fill a pothole, address a sidewalk concern, clean up an encampment, or issue a ticket for parking infraction. For these, 311 and the business areas are working together, but we have opportunities to improve this experience for Edmontonians. When we look closer at the 27% of inquiries that initiate service requests, we see that city operations accounts for over half of the volume due to the nature of services provided: road maintenance, snow and ice, traffic control, etc. This is then followed up by community services, where Edmontonians are calling for bylaw enforcement or animal welfare services. Together, these two departments account for approximately 250,000, or 75% of all of the referral requests. This information helps us to understand where most of our effort needs to be and on which systems we need to focus on. These business areas are already working hard on the recommended improvement processes. It's important to note that 311 inquiries are the city's reactive response to serving Edmontonians. Every day, our frontline teams are proactively inventorying, assessing, monitoring, planning, and delivering services, and the inquiries to only 311 are only one intake to many existing systems. To illustrate this, last year the City of Edmonton filled over 500,000 potholes. These were identified through road inspections, monitoring the inventory of the assets, leveraging integrated data sets, analyzing pictometry, accounting for the life cycle maintenance plans, and thoughtful evaluation of risk and public impact, all of which created an efficient scheduling plan. The 15,000 pothole requests that were made via 311 are incorporated into the plan to fill the 500,000 potholes, but these requests are not the lead or the sole driver of service delivery. In fact, to ensure equity in the delivery of city services for all Edmontonians across all wards, it's important that the requests from 311 be received, and from the councillor's office as well, all be received and entered into the business area's independent systems to be responded to in accordance with their established service levels. Given the integrated service model, 311 has continued to evolve and align our path of service delivery with the expectations of Edmontonians. We've been on a continuous improvement path, and some of our big focus areas have included creating excellent experiences. Since we opened 311 in 2008, we've developed roles, responsibilities, introduced scripts, processes, improved service response times, introduced survey to measure satisfaction, implemented program and service review changes, and launched the 311 app. We've layered in process and communication improvements by publishing 311 tickets in the open data portal, enabling service status features to enhance communication, adjusted closure processes, significantly improved system integration, and modified the 311 app to link duplicates for high volume services. 311 has also adjusted to and responded to significant organizational transformation service changes. This includes shifting parking complaints from EPS to 311, transitioning drainage services to EPCOR, redirecting these inquiries. We've adapted to the bus network redesign, the waste cart rollout. We've supported Edmontonians through the pandemic, ARC card rollout, LRT expansion, and with each of these we continue to learn and grow. Finally, we've introduced business performance enhancements through reporting, measuring overdue and complete service requests and trending volumes. Through these many evolutions, 311 in the business areas have learned to collaborate and evolve. Together, we've significantly honed the service delivery to where we are today with a very refined to-do list of opportunities, many of which were highlighted in the audit findings. With the referral tickets representing only 27% of the total inquiries to 311, and with more than 3/4 of these calls being mostly contained in a few branches and a few systems, And with the tickets only representing a portion of the total services rendered by these areas, we are confident in the city's ability to address the audit findings and further improve services for Edmontonians. This brings us back to the audit recommendations. As Stacey indicated, administration accepts all 5 of the auditor's recommendations. We will use our knowledge and insights of the business referral processes, our learnings and commitments from years of dedicated continuous improvement to address these recommendations. In short, we'll improve the service experiences by updating standard definitions of resolved tickets. We'll ensure that the process and measurement are aligned with these definitions. All of these efforts will create a more consistent and a better service experience for Edmontonians. Again, we thank the auditor for their feedback and recommendations and the city's response to the 311 services. Stacey, myself, and Catherine Cardinal, one of our operations managers from 311, are available to respond to any questions you may have.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation. Just a clarification, you said 91% of the people who use 311 surveyed are satisfied with the service they receive, right? That's what
They agreed that it was an easy way to access. Okay. 82% are satisfied with the service from the same.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, thank you. That's pretty good. Thank you so much. Good. Okay, questions now. This was exempted by Councillor Knack.
Mayor, we do have a speaker on this.
Oh, we have a speaker. Yes, right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Sherry. Yeah. All right. Okay, we'll go to Sherry. Are you there, Sherry? Yes, she is.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please. You have 5 minutes to make your presentation.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mayor, I would like to end all of the attendees today and the administrators, as well as the city auditor team. I just would like to know from the city auditor what the concerns are, and my objective basically is to find out how the closing of some of the 311 requests through a phone or app is being managed. OCA 02192 report does not include the app engagement when it comes to resolution and the targets of these closures. Next slide, please. The municipal prosecutor is the next step after a review of a city bylaw violation that has to be prosecuted. So I've actually asked to confirm the request of an independent review for the bylaws and guidelines, if and when they can, because I have not received a response. Next slide, please. Of the 25 CPO witnesses, that's community police officers, as far as my witness statements that have been concerning in our particular community in 2022, I did get a number of resolutions, but as of this year in 2023, 51, and it's not yet December, the CPO statements have doubled. And next slide, please. From that, I've received information that there has been closure, obviously, of a number of these 311 requests. 5 of them have resulted in actual fines. One of them for $10,000. Next slide, please. In August of 2021, I had recommended to collaborate with a property owner and their construction on site. They had confirmed that they had not understood what tree permitting was by the city, and therefore, without the city's permission, they went ahead and cut down trees. These were illegally cut and became an obstruction. Next slide, please. Issues related to known diseases and pests have gone to other city departments when we actually include the 311 report. We do have a lot of fungus growing on our trees in our community that will have to wait for another year before our scheduled disease control. Next slide, please. I've also talked about nuisance lighting within our community and the disruption that it causes for many people who live close to the construction site that has been causing some of these issues. Information that goes to our through our 311 app often does not become something of relevance because there is an issue of understanding of what that nuisance lighting is in our community. Next slide, please. The importance of communication on site is is imperative. However, we have been given information that is unreliable from the local construction site. They have asked to have construction from 6 a.m. to the following 3 a.m. So that is over 21 hours of construction that they can partake in throughout the day, even on statutory holidays. And we find that is inconsistent with the bylaws. Next slide, please. Our community is a mature neighborhood, and we understand that a number of the new funding that has gone through in this budget cycle also include ways in which we can have a low carbon budget within our city, and we're hoping that that will be implored and applied within this audit as well. Next slide, please. As we see more extremes, we understand that there are a number of ways in which we can mitigate some of the climate action that we could be doing. And my reference is to violations and notices that permitting pollution on very high polluted air quality days in 10 plus should be a part of what we can request of our city as far as a healthy environment. Next slide, please. And lastly, we've had community, information that comes to us from encampments, and whether the 311 has provided us with enough information to make important decisions around these encampments. This was this weekend. We lost a number of trees. Next slide, please.
I'm so sorry, Sherry.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Questions, Councillor Wright?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm on the list for administration in relation to the audit.
Any questions to Sherry? No, we'll move on to questions to administration and to city auditor. Councillor Wright, go ahead, please.
That came up quick. Okay, but actually, Andrew Knack.
Councillor
Yeah,
Knack
sorry.
exempted, so I can go to him first. Councillor Knack, go ahead.
It's fine, no problem. Well, thanks, Mayor Sohi. Thanks for the audit. A few questions I have. I wanted to try to better understand the questions related to things like duplicate requests and how we're going to be making changes going forward. So we get a lot of calls from people say, oh, this has shown up as a duplicate request, and then there's nothing that provides closure to them because maybe it was an entirely different person, so they have no sense as to what the status is. So I guess I wanted to better understand, how is that going to change going forward? So if somebody new has reported something that has been already reported, can that start, that information that might be going to the original person be shared for all of these duplicate requests so people know what's happening?
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Yes, we are looking at system improvements that would address that and connect the tickets better. We had historically learned that the referral request or the duplicate request aren't initiating from the same place. So getting that connected, it will be important on the future side of things. And as we close the tickets and improve the process of getting a standard definition, that closure will mean that no further action is required by the city. They'll be better connected there too.
Yeah. Thank you. And maybe on that point about closing tickets, I guess, I remember reading the part that talks about how it's increased from 13.5% to 40.8%, and that the majority still don't have a status code. I guess I want to get a sense of, with the technology, so I've been emailing folks and speaking with folks in 311 about this for a number of years, and I think there had always, and this isn't a concern on the 311 side, they've been wanting to make changes, I know, over the years. There have been technology barriers. So I guess I just want to get a lay of the land as to, does everyone have the tools they need to make sure that they can, A, close a ticket in the first place, and then B, make sure that the closure actually has the information that I think the average Edmontonian would be interested in seeing to help them understand what has been done to address the item that they've raised?
We have the ability in the technology and the systems that we have to appropriately close the tickets and connect them. We need some time to implement the processes that would basically do the workflow that would see the ticket from inquiry to full resolution. So on the resourcing side, we are working through that. And on the response, to let the average Edmontonian know, there is a lag between the request that is initiated and the service level. So we've been talking a lot with council about service levels and where we're at. If we're only, for instance, our turf cycles, we've talked about that being delivered twice in one season. You might make a request for a response on a turf cycle or want to know what's been done on a turf cycle. That's not going to be addressed other than twice a year, or twice a season. So that there is a lag on that I don't think that we can resolve with the technology or the solution. That's about the service level commitment that is being delivered.
On the first response, I just want to make sure I understand. So are the resource pieces around that proper closure a 311 piece or a other department and branch piece? Because, and just to give a bit of context, having had some of these chats as far back as 5 years ago as I can remember, and I have some emails that I've sent and can share if there's interest, I had received responses that 311 was very interested in other departments fulfilling that, and that they have been working with them to try to get them to that point. And it's not been necessarily a 311 issue. It's been other branches needing to sort of do it on their end. So I guess I want to figure out where does this have to be addressed to make sure we're fulfilling that recommendation?
We see it as a joint accountability. We do need the business areas. They're the ones that have to change the process side of how those are managed. So it is complex. There are multiple systems. Every business area deals with a different technology system. So how tax does it is different than how Parks and Roads receives theirs, which is different than how Community Services receives their tickets. So it's not easy, but we're working together with those business areas who do need to help and are committed to helping build those workflows to address the issue.
And I guess I don't want to dwell on it too much. I guess I'm curious as to sort of what's different now. Is it the fact that we have an audit? Because I've heard those desire, and again, with the greatest respect, I think it's the 311 team's been trying to put. I'm going to be out of time, so I'll have to come back. Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back, Councillor Knack. Okay, Councillor Wright.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm just wondering. So it's a problem with integration with other departments, mainly?
Yeah, the technology integration.
Okay.
It's not a people side of things. So when we get the request, it comes in and we log it in our CRM system.
Yeah.
And so the inquiry is made and it is logged in the 311 system. Then we refer it to the business area who enters it in, like the potholes example. They enter it into, I don't remember the name of their system, SAP plant maintenance. When it goes into the new system, right now there's not the arrow doesn't point back, the workflow doesn't point back to change the CRM ticket. Okay. And that's what the issue is. But there's 500,000 requests for potholes that are being tracked that we need to flow it on that side.
Okay. So like I know like when an item gets escalated, I think through my office, it goes into posse or something and they assign a posse number. So is there, did the audit sort of look at that integration with other systems?
Not the technical control side of it, no.
Okay.
So if I can just, when an inquiry comes into your office that should go to 311, we prefer that it goes to 311, and sometimes we'll help by creating the ticket in 311. I believe that's correct. What we're trying not to do is have 311 be bypassed by people who should be phoning 311, going to their counselor, and then sending those into a different system altogether. Because it's not helpful to the wider process to have multiple processes running when there is we acknowledge that we need to do some improvements, but there is an effective operation of 311 that those things should go to.
Okay, yeah, and I totally recognize that, and that is sort of the first point of contact that I tell constituents to do, and then if it's not responded to in a reasonable time, then escalate it through my office. But then I'm hearing from my office that they get quicker response when they go through the branch or the director or whatever, as opposed to that, there's a specific email address. Is that right?
So we've removed the free-form email address. you may get a quicker response, but that's not an equitable process on the service. So when we enter it into posse, then the response and focus does come to responding to the counselor rather than providing the service in a balanced way. So we need to work together on that, and that's what we're lucky did not have it bypassed. We don't want it to be a concierge service. Escalations.
Okay, I didn't realize that. That's why I said like if it was escalations, but yeah, so it should just remain in the queue, in the line.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'm also wondering about sort of the timeline of these recommendations for follow-up. So what is it? I think 1, 4, and 5 is March of 2024, but number 2 isn't until September 24. I'm just wondering, can those other ones be done without number 2 being done?
We can do the definition before, but we need, number 2 is the business areas working through those systems to ensure that the systems will allow them to close the tickets. And that one we just need a little bit more time on.
But then can you actually like complete the other ones prior to that? Like as far as closing tickets and that, without having the business areas sort of on side, can you actually get number 1 done?
Number 1, yeah, we'll just create this more standardized that it is not when you've transferred the ticket is when the matter has been resolved. So that will be the definition that we'll have moving forward. Number 2 will be the business areas closing it. We can work on the performance measures, and then just the input into the performance measures will be what changes.
Okay. I was just wondering. And then I think the last one is in 2025, and that's the performance measures. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ed. Councillor Principe.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really liked this audit. I thought it was really good. It was very informative. And I do have a question about so addressing the situation, is it going to be standardized, or will each business area have their own way to ensure that they're properly closing tickets?
The approach will be standardized. The implementation will be based on the different systems that the business areas have. But the approach of we can't consider a ticket closed until no further action is required by the city. And there are some things that the city can't take action on. So if there's a complaint about parking on private property, there's no city action that we can take. The ticket would be closed, but the matter might not be solved in the view of the Edmontonian. So that's where the response on what information on why the ticket was closed is important, so that the Edmontonian sees why not. So the approach will be the same, but actually how it's implemented will vary by the system.
Yeah, that's really good because, our offices, or I can speak for my office, I guess, does get a lot of comments that the ticket's closed, but it hasn't been resolved. And yeah, we spend a lot of time trying to navigate that. So this is really important for us too. It helps us out a lot too. So as Councillor Wright was saying, I just wanted to know what council can do to support. And my office regularly does say, have you reported to 311? That's your main, source for getting it addressed, the situation. What else can the council do to support that?
That would be a great first start, referring them back. The escalations are different. It's okay if they want to escalate. That is an important function. But if the first request can be entered in, appropriately call 311, use the app, that would be helpful. And then an awareness of the service level. So again, that reinforcement of that it is not a concierge. It doesn't mean you get addressed quicker. But this is if they're calling about turf, this is the turf cycle. If they're calling about potholes, knowing the difference between when we'll inspect the pothole and fill the pothole, those are different, and there's different service levels for each of those. Like if it's on a priority road, if it's on an alley, those are different service levels, and an alley can be up to a year. So if we're leaving a 311 request open until the matter is resolved, that will be a year for something like an alley closure.
Okay, yeah, that's great. That's it for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Principe. Councillor Rutherford.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Councillor Principe. I really was looking forward to this audit and found it very informative. So I want to start with that. And I'm just trying to for me, it's better to understand things in like a practical flow sense. So using a recent example that I've been dealing with in my office, because I agree, like we're definitely getting them. I had a recent flood of emails about an encampment in one of the neighborhoods that I represent. And when I reached out to the business area, they said there had only been 2 311 tickets created. But when I talked to residents, they said no, they've been phoning significantly an amount of time. So I'm guessing what happened is, are they getting closed before they're even transferred to the business area some case if they're a duplicate?
That would not be our standard process, no, Councillor Rutherford. They don't get closed before. It can be noted as a duplicate perhaps, but wouldn't be closed on encampments. One of the process things that is distinct, as we've talked about a little, is the differentiation between when an encampment has been inspected and then when it has been closed and then cleaned up. And those that is complex on a service workflow of how we're going to close those tickets, and that's something that we have to work with the business.
Yeah, but I think what I found really interesting in the audit is that linking. Like, even if there is duplicates, there was a high finding that there wasn't the linking with the original ticket. Like, so if you close as a duplicate, it's still not linked so that resident, because those residents might not talk to each other, right? So if there's a duplicate, but they both want to know the resolution. So I found that really interesting. So I'm guessing that might be part of the problem too, is the lack of the linking, even if a ticket is closed as a duplicate.
Yeah, and that is something that, like, from a systems view, we're looking to better resolve and then close and have the same comments made on the multiples.
Yeah, no, I think that, yeah, as I read the report, I just found it very like, that's what's happening. That's what's happening. Like, I found it very insightful. So I'm very excited to see these implemented for sure. Yeah, I guess that one of the things that also stuck in my mind is like, is there, because one of the measurements is around closure of ticket time, are we creating a false like urgency to close tickets too prematurely?
I think
with that as a measure of success?
I think we have historically, and the expectations will need to be adjusted going forward as we align the ticket closure to the service level. Like I mentioned with the alley potholes, you will close a ticket in a year. So,
but it will be more reflective of the true, authentic like thing. So that is the direction we're going, or the contemplated, I guess, from administration.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Nope, that's all my questions. Thank you very much for this audit.
Thank you, Councillor Rutherford. Councillor Knack.
Thanks, Mayor Sophie, and that was actually going to be one of my sets of questions, just around when closure is going to be actually coming through. So, is there any thought around, almost pulling a sample of folks who have reached out to ask them what specifically they'd want to see to help make sure we understand sort of the perspective of somebody calling and what they would envision as closure and what they would envision as the right information being presented, so that they can be in the loop and so that they can feel fully informed, and ideally eliminate the having to follow up with a counselor piece, because that's the part I'm really trying to figure out how we minimize.
I was just checking with Catherine Cardinal here. We haven't done any focus groups so far, and I think we certainly could. I would anticipate, based on information here, inputs from the service satisfaction survey, I would guess that they're going to be satisfied when the item has been resolved. So I think better communication and resolving them when the matter is complete and closed will go that'll make a huge stride in what they're looking for.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, and I guess the other piece is just what level of information is being put. So I find that when I use the 311 app, from some business areas, and again, it's not the fault of any other business areas, but some just have a more seemingly refined process about the level of detail that I get on that status. So when I'm watching it, I can feel like I've understood it a lot more than another one that's simply, and I'll use a pothole as an example. Oftentimes when that was reported, or a crack in a sidewalk, it's been inspected without then the supplemental piece of, you might even get scheduled for repair, but there's no reference to the service timeline. If it's an alley pothole, that, hey, this is scheduled for repair. Repairs can take up to a year, and making sure that's included in the actual status report. So if somebody's called that and they call back, that detail's there. Or if it's portrayed on the app, somebody can actually read it and feel like they don't have to follow up. And so that's more of where I envision like a benefit of a focus group of folks about what level of detail do you want to make sure that you don't feel like you have to follow up on that.
Yeah, it's super fair. I think that there would be tons of value in that. I would say the organization collectively, with some work of SIP, is maturing in defining our service levels. So even having a reference point online of what the expected service level is will be something that we can point back to. We need that work to be refined to be able to then link and send and communicate where we're at in the process of as tickets flow through the process.
Which raises the other question. So you mentioned turf cycle, so trimming. If we're going to do trimming twice a year, is there something on the app as we continue to advance technology? So if I go to submit a ticket for that, there's going to be something that pops up and says, hey, just so you know, trimming happens twice a year. And if you're interested in when the last trimming has done, here's the link to the map you can verify to see when it was done. Or here's the last time this park was mowed, and this is on a 14-day cycle. Something that can, again, try to preempt some more of those reports and save whatever staff time is being used. Is that something we're looking at continuing to refine here?
I would say continually to refine. Okay.
I was picking on Eddie's because Eddie's is the most, I see unmuted there, and it's just the most visible as an example. And I know you've been working on that, but I was asking more broadly as an organization, because I actually know Eddie and team, Mr. Robar, you're doing that work already. So I'm just, and maybe that leads to my sort of last question, which is that how do we make sure, because I really appreciate the work Mr. Robar is doing about updating the technology, updating the scripts from their business area. That's been a gap, as an example, for some time that 311 had identified, but we hadn't necessarily seen the resolution. How do we make sure everyone is doing that work that 311 team has been asking for? I mean, I guess we have an audit now and a date, so is that essentially the way to really make sure we're following through on it, or is there anything else we need to do to make sure that all the business areas are doing that similar level of work?
Yeah, I can say on the city operations side, definitely that scripting and giving more detailed information to 311 on scripting itself has been an advantage, and we'll continue to kind of refine that on the service level and operational work that we're doing, certainly on being very prescriptive on what the service levels are, so that we see less stuff flowing through that may be a complaint while it's still within the service level itself, and looking to automate options around maps and ability for people to see when their last turf trimming was or snowplow passed through is something that citizens will see more of as we kind of refine this approach on service standards, for sure.
I'm out of time. I might have a few more. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Knack. Public Member Mondamombe, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just to continue on that thought, I just wanted to understand from a process standpoint, like a general question around whether or not there is an opportunity to actually improve the existing technology, or even, adopt new technology to try and streamline the process and make it more efficient.
There's always opportunity. We have a workflow system that we're evaluating right now and partnering in with our waste team to take a look at. So the technology systems are there. It's just implementing the processes that connect to the technology systems, and we're working through those with the business areas.
Thank you.
Okay, I have the chair from Mayor Sohi, so I'm going to ask Councillor Rutherford if she can take the chair from me so I can ask my question.
You don't need to see the chair for committee.
Oh, thank you very much then. Okay, I didn't even have to think about that. Okay. So my question is in regards to being able to access the service for those with diverse needs. So not just, I see in the report that they're, you know, there's accessibility for those hard of hearing. But I'm just wondering for those with language, and I know there's interpreters, how is that offered to someone who calls into 311? Like, is it proactively offered, or?
Yes, so you can call 311, and there's over 70 languages available. And if you can indicate the language that is called in real time, you're transferred over to someone else, and then that call is just developed in an interpretive process with those languages. We do have the TTY services for those hard of hearing, and then the app is actually a big component of accessibility where pictures can be shared as well. So.
Okay, but for those, so I'm sure that those that use TTY for other services are, you know, probably look for this on, but I just noticed on our website, it's sort of right down at the bottom where it talks about the language. And I'm just wondering, and how available are those interpreters when they call in? Do you have any data on that? Like how quickly?
Yeah. I can ask Ms. Cardinal to add some additional detail.
Okay.
Thank you for the question. The interpreter service is available 24/7. We do have a service that we use, and we will dial out to that service, and then it will take maybe a few seconds or less than a minute probably to get the right kind of interpreter with the right language on the line, and then we have like a 3-way call.
Oh, okay, that's awesome. I thought maybe you had to line up a city employee or something and pull them off the job from filling potholes or something. Okay, so it is quite immediate then. And do the 311 operators then offer that outright, or do they wait to be asked?
We will proactively offer if we are having trouble, or if one of our team members is having trouble and someone is kind of having trouble with English with us, and we will proactively ask, is there another language that we can help you with? But it's not usually in that ease of language. We work together with the caller to try to figure out what it is that they need and what language that they require. And sometimes it's as easy as just asking interpreter, and then we can get an interpreter service on the line.
Okay, I will let the members of my ward know, because there is a lot of different language, mother tongues and that. And so they're hesitant to call 311. So I will let them know, just say interpreter, and right off the bat. Okay, thank you very much. And now I'll go to Councillor Knack and give the chair back to Mayor Sohi.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Just a last question. Mr. Madamambe had asked about new technology, and I wanted to get a sense of, you know, so something I have heard. We held a town hall earlier this month, and we had folks who talked about wanting to do more about reporting, and maybe not everyone is as smartphone savvy as they would like to be, and so they had expressed some concern around not having that opportunity to call sort of after 7 o'clock, which I know, and you know, I point to myself, we made the decision to change the hours because we weren't seeing very much uptake from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. But with the evolution of different technology and you know, whether it's AI, different things like that, have we looked at adding in new technology to allow somebody to maybe call during that 12-hour span and speak to essentially a bot that can take in basic request calls, that can continue to allow for more reporting options? Because what I found in that conversation is some folks are saying, well, the reason I email you is because, you know, I'm working during the day and, you know, maybe I don't have a good smartphone, or I don't have a data plan that's unlimited. And so they're very mindful of what they can and can't report. So have we looked at technology to maybe more specific, have we looked at specific technology to integrate to help expand our reach and offer more options?
Yes, the team is continuously exploring all continuous improvement opportunities. We're looking at chatbots. What we have experienced and done in some e-scanning is that it's similar to open text models, where sometimes it takes a while to kind of refine what they're asking for, locations, details and specifics that can actually add frustration on behalf of the caller. So we are exploring them and trying to figure out where they might best be deployed and how we could do that. But we haven't decided on a clear path forward there yet.
It's great to hear that you're looking at it. That's just more of the main question. So Those are all my questions, Mayor Sohi. If there's no one else that can move.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions, Councillor Nack. Yeah, on the, I understand the. First of all, I really want to show my appreciation for the work that 311 does, and excellent service. Having 82% satisfaction in a service is pretty good. I also understand that that number could actually go up if there was. I think some of the dissatisfaction comes when the issue doesn't get resolved, right? But that's not 311. That's the service area, and there are limitations within the service area because if there's only 2 cycles for trimming, people may want to have 3 cycles for trimming. I think like if the service levels improve or response to the inquiry improves, probably the satisfaction will be higher beyond 82%.
Correct. We do see some conflating between the response and the service delivery, for sure.
Leah, for example, the encampment, I think there were about 15,000 calls so far up to in 2023. 10,000 of those were duplicate, right? So, but even our response to encampments is pretty slow, so that increases the dissatisfaction among people.
Correct. Dissatisfaction and some frustration from the callers as well. Gets escalated more easily.
Okay, got it. So the lag time in the response on those areas. Got it. Okay, that's what I just wanted to understand better. Okay, good. Thank you so much. Right on. Good. Okay, Councillor Nack, go ahead, please.
Yeah, happy to move receipt of information for both items there, 7778.
Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor. Anyone to speak?
Just a very brief close.
Go ahead, Councillor Nack.
Yeah, sorry, and sorry for all the questions on this. I wanted to thank everyone for this audit. Similar to my colleagues, I thought it was a great audit. I think the work that 311 has been doing has been phenomenal. We have seen the survey results over the years have trended very similar, which is a testament to the work that the teams are doing. Both the teams who are leading that, but also the folks who are actually taking the calls each and every day. One of the first things I got to do when I was elected, I think 10 years ago, was actually sit in for a good chunk of time with some of the 311 operators to hear the work, hear how they're responding to calls and going through that. And I've just always been so impressed with how well they work, especially when you think about all the other call centers that exist. Ours is truly a standard like we need to hold ourselves to, and others should try to mimic. The main reason why I was just sort of pushing is that I also know that they've been wanting to see some of these things for some time, and through a combination of technology differences and a variety of things, it maybe hasn't gotten to the level that the audit has recommended as quickly as I think all of the folks working in 311 would have liked to have seen. And so that's why I'm just really eager to see these recommendations put into place, because I know it's been something that they felt would have made lives better quite some time ago. And so I'm glad to see we're finally moving in that direction, and that I think all of the other departments who support their work by providing those updates will get us to where we need to go. So forgive all the questions, but it was done out of a place of love for a group that I think is doing a lot of great work and truly deserves a lot of appreciation. Everyone taking the calls, everyone responding to those as best they can each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nack. So please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. So that concludes 7-7, 7-8, 7-9 was not selected, 7-10 was not selected. Go into private. Can someone move that we go on camera?
Sorry, Mayor Sohi, just as a quick point of order before we do that. I know I selected it, and I don't have a ton of questions, and if we don't all have a ton, we might be able to finish it before lunch, so I'd be willing to move to extend orders to finish, but we can't do that in private, so
But
I just wanted.
let me get a sense from other committee members. Tons of questions, not many, not, and Councillor Rutherford. Okay, well let's move then before we go into
No,
camera.
I don't have.
Yeah,
I don't have it.
that we extend the order of the day to finish with the agenda. I'll make
I'll
that.
move that.
Okay, Councillor Knack moved that. Okay, great. Okay, please vote.
Are we a yes?
Thank you. We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. Okay, great. Councillor Wright, you want to move that?
I'll move that we go into private, subject to section 17, 24, and 29 of the FOIP Act.
Okay, please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. We'll give you a couple of minutes to lock the doors. back in public.
And if you'll just give me a moment, I'm just going to put a slightly revised recommendation into the chat, and it is just to confirm that the work plan would be approved and that the entire report, which includes attachment 1 as the work plan, can be made public. But just give me one moment.
Is it in the audit chat as well?
Apologies, I can give it to our public members. It just depends on who would like to make it, but yeah, I can send that 1 second.
Since Kosternak will make it, he exempted this item, so.
Sure, happy to move it. That the Office of the City Auditor 2024 Annual Work Plan as outlined in attachment 1 of the November 30th, 2023 Office of the City Auditor Report be approved and that the Office of the City Auditor Report be made public.
Got it. Okay. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Please vote.
We have all the votes.
Display the votes, please. That is carried. No motions pending. No some motions or motions without customary notice? No. We are adjourned at 12:18.